Wow, hard to believe it, but it's another new year. It's 2024, and it's time to get started on your resolutions with Factor. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores, prep work, and cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from every week, including options like Keto, Calorie Smart, Vegan Plus, Veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons, you'll have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart your resolution. Forget frantic lunch preps and rushed dinners. Factor's 2-minute meals are your secret weapon in the new year. Fuel up fast with restaurant-quality meals all delivered straight to your door. Factor now offers loads of snack options like breakfast, smoothies, juices, snacks, and more to keep me going no matter what's on the schedule. Skip the overpriced takeout trap. Factor is cheaper and way more delicious than takeout. Get chef-crafted, quality, restaurant-quality meals delivered right to your door. They're ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes, which means more time for you. Need a special occasion meal? Gourmet Plus is the perfect solution if you're looking for fast, upscale options done easily. When things get hectic, Factor's flexible. Change your order up every week with plans from 4 to 18 meals per week, or pause or reschedule your deliveries anytime, like when you go on vacation. Stress less over meal times in the new year. Factor's no prep, no mess meals, free up time otherwise spent shopping, cooking, and cleanup. In addition to ready-to-eat meals, they have cold-pressed juices, smoothies, energy bites, extra protein, veggie sides, and more to keep me energized during frantic times. Head to factormeals.com/wheelbearings50. That's wheelbearings50, and use code wheelbearings50 to get 50% off. That's code wheelbearings50 at factormeals.com/wheelbearings50 to get 50% off. Coming up on episode 334 of Wheel Bearings, we've got the Chevy Trailblazer, the Range Rover Velar, the Mazda CX-50, Jeep Wagoneer S is coming. Stellantis has a bunch of large EVs coming by 2026. They've already got the Ram Promaster EV. JerryRigEverything tows with the Cybertruck. BMW is putting humanoid robots in its factory. Ford abandons plans for self-repossessing cars. They've also got a new infotainment system. And got more software-defined vehicle trouble. All that and more coming up next. This is episode 334 of Wheel Bearings. I am Sam Abu-Al-Samad from Guidehouse Insights.
I am Nicole Wakeling from The Road Reflected.
And I am Roberto Baldwin from SAE International.
I feel like it should be like SAE. Like it needs something more than just SAE. Yeah, it needs some
Say International.
If you get really excited about it, it comes out like that. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
All right.
Like the Nintendo Wii. SAE.
The Wii was a great console.
It was a lot of people bought that thing.
The best thing about it was seeing the videos of people who would accidentally throw their little controllers at their giant screens because they didn't put the little safety strap thingies.
Well, they didn't include those originally, I don't think. Or maybe
they originally have.
Oh no, it was the rubber sleeve that you could put around.
You could hold on.
You get a better grip on it.
Hold tight.
That's what they added later on.
Because they were slick as hell.
Yeah.
As evidenced by the videos.
and yet, Apple learned nothing from that in designing the Apple TV remote.
That's true. It is. Yeah. It is. Yeah.
The most lost remote on the planet, to be honest. That thing is it's super thin and slick and just like David Copperfield is gone.
It looks
Apple
great.
TV still around?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Oh, I just haven't had the Apple. It used to be like we had Apple TV a million years ago. But it was the world's tiniest controller, too. It was teeny tiny. So it's like if it went into the couch cushion, it didn't just go into the couch cushion. It then got behind the cushion, like into the innards of your couch. Like it could just like be gone.
It looked great in product shots.
Right?
Not so great to use.
No, not
just
so
disappear.
Much. Yeah. All right. Enough of that nonsense.
Yes.
What have you been driving, Nicole?
I've been driving the 2024 Mazda CX-50. Okay, and the very first thing I have to address is the color. Did I talk about this live last week, or was it afterwards that we mentioned
I think it was afterwards.
Okay, so I feel like every Mazda, if you're buying a Mazda in any color other than that beautiful, I forget what they call it, the soul red metallic.
Soul crystal red metallic.
Soul crystal red metallic. Crystal soul red. The really bright red. Yeah. It is the single best. It's beautiful. It's like my favorite paint color ever. This one is not that color. I didn't even realize. I looked out the window. I'm like, what is that? I'm like, oh, wait, that's a Mazda? What is that color? The color is called Zircon Sand Metallic. And Zircon Sand Metallic actually costs you an extra $450. It's brown. It's
sand.
Nope,
and metallic.
Brown. It is not. It's like this weird brownish, grayish. Maybe I was trying to be army green, but I faded color. I don't like it. I was so disappointed. I didn't realize how vested I was in Mazda's being red until one in Zircon Sand Metallic ended up in my driveway. Don't buy this.
I mean, if you are, trying to use it to, be camouflaged and, glide through the woods, without being noticed.
You would be stealthy and unnoticed. It would blend right in with the foliage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Foliage.
I've seen this color, and it's not a color that I would ever buy.
No, it's not. It's just not. It's not a great color. And just so anyway, that was my main gripe. The color. I don't like this. Color is important. What you look at every time you walk up to it, you got to look at Zircon Sand Metallic. But
Zircon Sand Metallic.
So last year, the CX-50 was new last year, so not much has changed because it was an all new for 2023. And they had us, I remember at the launch program, we actually did off-roading because they keep building this. In fact, if you go to the consumer site, you will see it billed as like the off-road ready Mazda CX-50, which, okay, yes, you can do some off-roading. And they had us drive on some just, like packed dirt, that you would have if you're on a trail.
Kind of like we did with the Hyundai Palisade?
Yes, exactly like what we did with the Hyundai Palisade. Like it's packed dirt. And they did have us go on a little, it was an incline that was a little bit rutted that had to work a little bit. Like, yeah, okay. Like you couldn't take a Camry up it. That's my standard for like, does your car really off-road? If you can take a Camry up it, you're just messing around. If you can't, then you can off-road. You couldn't have taken a Camry up that. So it can off-road, but I feel like billing it as like the off-road Mazda is a little bit much. Like, because you're not.
It looks off-roady. It looks more off-roady than any other Mazda.
It does look more off-roady, and you can, and it comes, his standard all-wheel drive, and there's drive modes in there, and you can, but you're not going over rocks in this. It's not like heavy-duty off-roading. It is something you could take on more than just pack dirt like we did the Palisade, but it's a step up from that. But I feel like it's a little bit of a not quite accurate. Like I feel like it's not that off-roady. It's like
a grocery getter.
It's a grocery getter that you could also take to your cabin. And if it happened to pour rain and the road was rutted, the mud and the dirt, you'd be okay. And if you had to go up a little hill that was a little bit of a mess, it'd go spin and get you up to the top. It'd be okay. But I don't really feel like it's spin. I don't really
the tires can get a little grip.
Oh yeah, they'll get a little grip.
Spin.
So I don't feel like it's a truly off-road vehicle. But okay, so that also. But if you're just driving it around town, doing like Robbie said, using it as a grocery getter, it's great. It has that Mazda thing. It drives nicely. Mazda's it's not zoom anymore. What is it? Driving Matters? Is that Mazda's?
Yeah, I think so.
I have the right one.
Yeah.
Go back to zoom.
I know they should.
That creepy little kid who just like stared at the camera. Zoom. Bring him back.
I like the zoom.
He's probably like 47 years old now. He's like, hey. How's it going? Zoom.
Yeah, exactly.
He can't be a smoker. He sings in a top cover band.
So, but it does do the Mazda thing where you expect, where it's nice to drive. It handles well. It's not a super sporty car. It's not like sports car-y, but it does have great handling. It does, it's fun to take on the highway. It's got plenty of pep. There are 2 engines that you can get with this. There is a 2.5 liter. I have 2.4, and I thought it was a 2.5. Yeah, I'm like, why did I write down 2.4? It's a 2.5 4-cylinder, 187 horsepower, 187 6-pound-feet of torque. That's the base, or a turbocharged version, 227 horsepower, 320 pound-feet of torque. Get that one. Get the one that has more pep, and that's the one that I drove, and I drove it in the very top trim, which is the Premium Plus. Technically, the trim level is 2024 Mazda CX-50 2.5 Turbo Premium Plus. I'm surprised it fits in the space they have on the Monroney. So I had the very top trim as this one with everything they had. And they did add on, actually the only extra on this is the paint. It was $45,125. And this is the very top trim, which is a lot. If you don't want all that, you don't care about the peppier engine, the very base model is about just over $30,000. So there's a $15,000 price spread there. So there's a lot of variance in Mazda, and there's 8 trims. There's a lot of choices. the 8 trims is partly because you've got 2 different engines. So it's kind of like same trim, base engine, turbo engine. So
it's really 4 trims and
really
2
like
engine
4.
choices.
Yeah. So you have, so you still have a good number of choices. I would definitely go with the turbocharged engine just because I think it's more fun to drive, and that's a pretty big, from 186 to 227 horsepower. That's 187. That's a pretty big jump. So you're going to feel the difference. And it has still the Mazda interior. Mazda does that. They're not really a luxury car, but they are a more upscale automaker. Their cars tend to go more premium. Even the base trims. I mean, a base trim from a top trim, you'll see a difference. But I do feel like even in the base trim, you never feel like it's too base. It never feels like you're really missing out on stuff. Maybe you don't have some of the fancier things or the heated seats or whatever. When you get up to this trim, though, for that 45, you get leather seats, and they have, I think they call it book binding, book stitch, like that cross stitch kind of thing that goes down the center of the seats, and it's on the dashboard, and there, it's got leather everywhere, and leather heated and ventilated front seats. There's a heated steering wheel. It's a really nice interior, and the front seats are relatively heavily bolstered because, again, they're going for that sporty thing. So it's not so heavily bolstered that it's going to squish you or make you feel tight like a true sports car or some little hot hatch kind of deal. But it is bolstered enough to kind of make you feel like you're in a little sporty thing, kind of hold you in place. So I like that. I don't like the storage inside is weird. So this is a 2-row SUV / crossover. It's not huge. It's on the smaller side. But on the center console, you have a spot for your, there's the cup holders and there's all the, the gear and such. And then behind it, there's a nice little slot that holds your cell phone again in sideways. So as you're doing the wireless charging, it'll stay put. It'll actually sit there and not slide around. But there's only a tiny little space to the front of those cup holders. I mean, I have a smallish women's wallet. My wallet doesn't even fit in the carved out part of that. So it's very, very tiny. And so there's not a lot, like if you've got anything in your hands that you're tossing into the car, you're putting it on the passenger seat because there's just no room for anything there. And here's a weird thing that I noticed. So when you put your phone and it angles in, you put your phone into a little charging thing and it holds it in place once you get it. But it is very persnickety about being in exactly the right spot. If it is off a 1/4 inch too far to the left, it won't charge. Like literally. And I'm like, well, and if I put it, it would only charge one way. I couldn't put it in either way. I had to put it in only one way. And if
because of where the charging receiver is on the phone to line it up.
Yeah, but it was harder. I've never normally I feel like I can just kind of toss it in. Oh, there you go, boom, and not pay much attention. This one I was like, wait, nope. And you can see there's a tiny little light because it's sort of, you can't really see the phone when it's in there. It's sort of tucked at an angle, so it's almost coming underneath your armrest a little bit, the way they have it snugged in. You can't really see the phone to see if it's, but there's a little teeny light, and light turns green, and it's like green, yellow, green, red, green. I'm like, what is happening? So I had to move it, just try a little bit, then it's happy.
It's a little disco.
It's a little disco going on.
World's tiniest disco.
Tiniest little disco in the center console. So it was a little finicky with that, but once you get the sweet spot and you get used to it, then you can get it to charge. But overall, I like it. I mean, it is pricey. I like how the top trims look in this. I feel like part of why you buy a Mazda is for that premium vibe, sort of. And if you want that premium vibe and really truly want it, you're spending $45,000 on a mid-size SUV, small SUV?
No, I would say it's a compact. I mean, I think they would classify it as a compact.
Compact. Okay.
Compact today is a lot bigger than compact was 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But this is the same size class as a Toyota RAV4, Honda CR-V, Nissan Rogue, Ford Escape, Chevy Equinox. They're all in this compact class that is, pretty decent size. I mean, it's certainly big enough to hold 4 adults.
Yeah. I feel like it shouldn't be called compact anymore. I think that whole thing is a lie.
The compact, it's hard.
Like everything grew bigger. Everything got bigger as the cars got bigger. They just didn't change the name, but they kept the cars in that class. Yeah.
But I would say relative to those competitors, even at the lower trim levels, the CX-50, like other Mazdas, has a nicer interior. It feels more premium at similar price points. And the reality is, when you price out those competitors, this isn't necessarily that much more expensive, or even any more expensive. Yeah, and especially like with the CX-50, I'm looking at the build and price site right now. The base 2.5S Select trim, which starts at just over $30,000, that has all-wheel drive standard. So all-wheel drive is standard on the CX-50. It's kind of like Subaru. This particular model, it's all-wheel drive across the board. So there is no front drive variant. So when you compare the pricing against the all-wheel drive versions of other makes, it's actually pretty fairly priced.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not cheap, but it's not bad. Like, it's not crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately, everything new is not cheap.
Yeah.
Or at least not inexpensive. Let me rephrase that.
There we go.
Yeah. And to your comments on the wireless charging, hopefully, in the next year or two, we'll start to see automakers start to put in Qi 2 wireless pads. So
what's Qi 2? I don't even know what this is.
So what we have right now is just the original Qi standard. That's the wireless charging standard. And you put it on the pad and hope to get it lined up right so it'll actually charge. Qi 2 is based on Apple's MagSafe. So when Apple put wireless charging in their phones, they added some magnets in the charging pad and some magnetic material in the phone case itself, so that when you put it on, it automatically aligns itself with the receiver.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
So you get better charging. And Qi 2 is basically taking what Apple did with MagSafe on the iPhone and made it an industry standard, and added some other upgrades, higher power, things like that. And Qi 2 based phones are just starting to come to market now, and hopefully by next year we'll start to see cars with Qi 2 pads in there, so it's got a magnet, so it actually holds it in place and keeps it aligned so that it'll actually charge.
Yeah, that would make things nicer.
Absolutely.
I like this idea. It's okay. Yeah. So we just have to wait for Qi 2 to come out.
Yeah.
Qi 2.
So don't buy anything until it's available with Qi 2, right?
Just hold off on that car for a little bit.
Stop buying things.
Yeah, the car and the phone. Hold off. Yeah.
All their stuff, it's probably working right now. Just don't buy new stuff.
Yeah. All right. And Robbie, what do you got?
I had the Range Rover Velar. Velar,
isn't it Velar?
Yes, Velar.
Velar. Now I'm gonna read it as Velar. Thanks, Robbie.
Velar. The Velar. Oh! Update on the Zoom Zoom kid. He's in his mid-30s. He's a lawyer now.
Oh, okay.
You actually Googled him?
Yeah.
Does he look like a burly lumberjack? No, probably not. If he's
it just looks like it looks like he has a nice family, has a wife and a kid. Good kid.
Good.
I hope everything worked out for Zoom Zoom kid. It looks like it did. I hope. I don't know.
Life with Mazda was good for him then.
Yeah, life with Mazda was good for him. Well, I mean, if you're a kid and you're an actor, you're going to go back to school and everyone's going to keep saying Zoom Zoom to you for the rest of your school career. Just sneak it up behind you, whispering in your ear, Zoom Zoom. You're like, this was not worth the $5,000 or whatever I got.
I know, right? I hope you made a really good payday for being Zoom Zoom kid.
I think you get residuals. So
every time there's a commercial, well, yeah.
Yeah, so for a few years, I think it probably helped pay for college and, all the candy bars he could eat. So anyway, maybe he owns a Range Rover Velar. So I had the Range Rover Velar Dynamic SE. This is the sort of not quite top of the line, sort of close to it, like second in line. It's a 3-liter turbocharged 6-cylinder mild hybrid system. It has 395 pounds of torque, 395 horsepower. Sorry, ignore that first number. 405 pounds of torque. It's got an 8-speed automatic. It's got the little paddle shifty thingies that no one ever uses. All-wheel drive, so that's nice as well. It's been raining like crazy here, so all-wheel drive is nice. We drove in and out of the city last night, and in both ways there were multiple accidents.
Oh wow!
Just driving around on their summer tires, or their tires they haven't fixed, or driving too quickly. Slow down. Rain is it's slick.
Yeah.
I
don't know.
Especially when you're not used to it.
Especially when you're not used to it. And if you are used to it, still slick. there, we hit, you get a puddle somewhere, you get, suddenly you're hydroplaning, and now you're having a bad day. So slow down. I don't.
And if you're somewhere where there's snow, like there has been here in Michigan,
in here,
also slow down. Thursday I had to go to Dearborn for a briefing, and there was all kinds of cars off the road. Yeah, it's like just slow down. Yeah, if you end up sliding off the road, whether it's rain or snow or whatever it might be, it's going to take you a lot longer to get to your destination than if you just slow down a little bit to begin with.
Yeah, just don't. It's not a race, people.
Yeah,
just get to where you need. You know what? Inside of your car, warm.
Yeah,
heater. Get your little radio going or your podcast.
You don't have to climb out into the snow, get your feet all wet and
that stuff's
icy.
going on.
Yeah,
just slow down. I drove cross country in my '90 Honda Civic during a blizzard. We couldn't go faster than 25 because the wheels would spin, so we just drove 25.
There you go.
At one point, we had to stop and pee, so we just stopped in the middle of the road, in the middle of nowhere, and just peed in the road. And we were probably I think it was with Micah Musio from Kelly Blue Book, and I think there was a few feet between us and the actual asphalt of like snowy ice. And you know what we did? We just slowed down. We listened to a lot of music and slowed down and talked.
That's what you do.
That's what we did.
Better to get there safe than to not get there at all.
Exactly. So slow down. A Range Rover Velar Dynamic SE didn't have to slow down. No, I'm just kidding.
Drove like a maniac.
Drove like a complete jerk, just running people off the road. No. It's so the Velar is a really pretty car. That's the one. Not car, SUV. It's a beautiful SUV. I like the way it's very slick. It's got it's almost like a precursor to the new Range Rover Sport, which is like just smooth. It's a very smooth vehicle. You get inside, it feels like you're in a very fancy British library, like one of those ones you see in
British library.
When the British person goes to like some sort of club with some old British people, and like the guy from South London goes there to tell them, and he's in charge now, and they're like, oh, ho, 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 ho. So that's like sort of the deal. That's that club or that library. It's got that sort of feel. It doesn't get great gas mileage, 20 miles per gallon. It's 21 is their EPA. I got 20.2. It was mostly freeway driving, a little bit of around town. Yeah, not great. But I mean, if you're throwing down $70,000, you probably don't care. That's the sort of the starting price for this vehicle. The vehicle I was driving $78,933 because they had the cold climate pack, which I really need here for the 55 degrees and rain. Where like one point, my wife and I were just the heater in here's one thing. The heater in the Velar is really good, but it thinks it's like if it's like 56 outside and you set to like 63, it just turns the heater on. It's like, well, it's cold outside. Let me warm you up. And so we kept just like turning the heater down. Finally, we just rolled down the windows. So if you need a warm car, the Velar that's your jam. Land Rover has had this, and Range Rover, their infotainment system for the last, I think, about 10 years. Whenever you make a change, it doesn't like do that. It doesn't like snap to the next thing. It does this sort of fade in or fade out to the next thing, and you're never sure if it's
if it's actually responding to what you tap.
If it's responding or if it looks cool, but at the same time, you're like, I just want to go to this thing. And for years, I was like, well, did they create that because the hardware wasn't quick enough? So if we hit this, but then you think about it, like, well, no, they have to do this whole fade thing, which no one else is doing. So I guess it's responsive. It's hard to tell.
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess it's responsive
because it still has to generate the fade. So it has to. It's doing something.
So
but
does the Velar that you have the newer infotainment system that's just a large touchscreen? It doesn't have any knobs on it anymore.
Yeah. It's got the large touchscreen, which is kind of a pain. I'm again. I think we're all.
The last time I drove a Velar, it had the old system on there that had a couple of knobs on it still, and it was a more wide screen, and wasn't as tall, but it was wide. And
Yeah.
so there's this new one that
trying to find buttons is everything.
I suspect in this case, because this is running on a new hardware platform that has a lot more performance. It's probably a design decision that they made, don't want to rush anything, just nice and graceful transitions from one mode to another.
Yeah, everything's just like, hello. There should be like a little, every time you do something, because that's what it feels like. You're like,
they're using that Qualcomm Snapdragon processor to do these really cool animations.
And that's the thing is they're not like over, like the Hummer. That's where you're just like, you push the mode
it's like
and
a little video.
the car drives through like a wall. There's an explosion.
It's very dramatic. Yeah,
it's very dramatic.
Like, entertainment.
But you push it, it like takes like a few moments for it to render that. It's not like immediate. Whereas with the Range Rover, you push it and it does just a nice little fade in and out. It's very. To be honest, I prefer to Range Rovers what Range Rover's doing. The other thing is like, well, this is cool. If I were, I don't know, if I were a 13-year-old, it was like I just finished a game of Fortnite and I'm going to go drive my Hummer, and every time I change the mode, I want things to explode.
I mean,
that's not what I need in a car.
If you're selecting a Hummer over literally anything else, kind of, nothing personal to anybody out there. You kind of have that mentality, I think.
Mm-hmm. That's your jam. You know what? If you're buying it, that's your jam. I hope so. I hope you didn't buy it and you're like, oh man, this sucks. Like everything, you're cool with everything else being over the top, but that is like, no.
It's too much.
Really, I've made a mistake.
One step too far.
Yeah, the Velar is the opposite. It's the anti-Hummer. It's not over the top. It's very, almost sort of subdued, just kind of a chill. It's very comfortable. We drove it around. It drives fine. It drives nice. It's it's got the adequate luxury feel. It's different from what you're going to get from if you're looking for something that is not a BMW, it's not a Mercedes, it's not a Lincoln, it's not, you want to be a little bit different, then you have the Range Rover Velar. It's sort of in a weird spot. It's like the QX60, where it's not quite the biggest one, not quite the smallest one. It's Goldilocks. It's a Goldilocks vehicle. Yeah, I see them around, so I know they're selling them. But it's like, I want a Range Rover, I want a Land Rover, but I'm not crazy. I don't want a Defender. Don't look at me. I want to be cool, but I also want to be I also just like, hey, I'm the Zoom kid. I had enough.
The Zoom kid.
I made my residuals on the commercials. Now I want to, spend some of it on a nice SUV to haul my kid around.
When you notice it, you're like, oh, this is really nice. But when you don't, you're like, oh, thank God. Please don't bother me. I dug the Velar.
Speaking of don't bother me, I've got the build and price site up right now. There's 9 color options for the Velar.
Mm-hmm.
3 of them are grays. Let's see, there's Arios gray, Carpathian gray, Zadar gray. There's also the Hakuba silver. So that's 4 in grays and silvers. Then there's Fuji white and Ostuni pearl white. So that's 8. There's 8 colors, not 9. So that's 7 right there. There's a black, Santorini black. And then the only one that is nominally non-monochromatic is the Veracene blue.
That's what I had.
If you look at it, at least the pictures, I don't know how it looks in real life, but the pictures look more gray than blue. It does look more. I don't even see a hint of blue in this. It
is pretty blue. It's pretty gray. It's like it's gray, and then they showed it a blue crayon, and they're like, "Ooh, Veracene blue." Like there's a crayon hidden somewhere in the car. Somewhere in the vehicle is a crayon.
4 grays, a silver, 2 whites, and a black.
Yeah, it is very much like, hey, chill out, man.
I would like to see a Velar in Soul Crystal red.
Right?
Oh, that'd be amazing. That would be beautiful.
One thing I did, what was weird is that when you close, how you have the automatic rear door tailgate, and there's 2 buttons. There's one button that just closes it, and there's one button that closes it and locks it. It doesn't have the lock button. So I have to
does it just automatically close every time or lock every time? I mean,
no, you just close it and then you have to lock it with the key. So that's kind of
okay.
Come on. Get
That's
together.
lame.
I need that way more than I need puddle lights.
Yeah.
Because you just, the puddle light. Oh, there's a puddle. I'm going to step in anyway. So because
I can't avoid it. So
yeah, I'm like, well, now at least now I'm ready. I guess if I have a sack in the car, I could tie it around my feet. Some sort of plastic sack. Range Rover Velar. Again, it's I like the center console. Is because it's just like once you close that little where you put your phone, it's just a nice like piece of wood that goes from I don't know. It's a very calming vehicle. It's like hey, it's like a
don't get excited. We're gonna get you wherever you need to go in due time.
It's an emotional comfort animal of a vehicle.
There you go.
It's just kind of like hey, settle down.
Yeah.
I got you. Hey, you had a hard day at work? It's okay. It's okay. Just get inside. Come on.
We got you covered.
You need to be warm? Because we'll make you warm. I'm the Velar. Range Rover Velar. You want to be chill. You don't want to be crazy like you would, I guess, in a X5M or whatever. The Velar.
How much was it?
It was, I'm sorry, let me look. With all the...
It was crazy.
All the stuff, $79,933. So $80,000, which includes the $1,100 cold climate pack, the $2,600 21-inch wheels. Don't get the big wheels. Heads up display was $1,000. The color, if you can call it that, $950, and then some other stuff, roof, exterior, blah, bunch of veneer. Emergency pack. I don't know. I guess if you ever have an emergency, it starts at 70, but you can, like all luxury vehicles, you can kick it up pretty quickly to another 10,000. So 79,000.
Okay. Did you know you can support Wheel Bearings directly? Head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia and you can become a patron today. Your contributions will help fund the platforms and tools we use to bring the podcast to you. And exclusives and improvements are already on the way thanks to your generosity. So if you want to be part of an automotive podcast like no other, head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia.
Okay.
Well, I also had a little crossover SUV-ish thing that is designed to look more rugged and capable than it actually really is. And that is the Chevrolet Trailblazer, 2024 Chevrolet Trailblazer. So, Chevy's got two of these small crossovers now, the Trax and the Trailblazer. And actually, when they redesigned the Trax last year, it went from being smaller than the Trailblazer to actually being longer than the Trailblazer, although the Trailblazer is taller and I think ever so slightly wider. The Trax is only available in front-wheel drive. The Trailblazer can be had in front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. I had the all-wheel drive active trim. So there's LS, LT, active, and RS. The RS is the sporty. The active is...
They left the E off the end of active. Like they put every letter...
if they had put the E on there, they wouldn't be able to trademark it. So by creating a new variation of the word, they can get a trademark on active.
But they didn't need the I.
It's active without the. Maybe they did. Maybe somebody's already trademarked just active.
That could be.
Are you sure it's active and not Act 4?
That is a possibility. Although you can get the Act 4 in front wheel drive, so it doesn't make as much sense. But for the powertrains, same engines that you can get in the Trax. So it's the two variations of the little 3-cylinder, a 1.2 liter turbo or a 1.3 liter turbo. The active comes with the 1.3 liter. If you get a front wheel drive Trailblazer, you can get either engine. Either engine comes with a CVT. If you get all wheel drive, then you get a 9-speed automatic, which is a much better choice. Mm-hmm. Although the CVT is not bad in the Trax. I haven't driven the Trailblazer with it, but I mean it's basically the same vehicle. The CVT is not bad in there, but if you really don't like CVTs, then get the all-wheel drive, and then you get a 9-speed automatic. The front wheel drive Trailblazer LS starts at 24,395, which is actually pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
That's not a bad price at all. So you get a vehicle that's got adequate seating for, adequate room for 4 adults. The back seat is big enough, and because it's a little bit taller than the tracks, you can actually, I set, I'm like 5'10", 5'11", depending on what time of day it is. I set the seat for my height. I get in the back seat. I've got plenty of leg and knee room. I've got several inches of gap to the front seat, and lots of headroom, and so, 2 adults in the back seat, not a problem at all. Unlike, say, at least the first generation Hyundai Kona, which was very tight in the back seat. So you can have, 4 adults in here, not a problem at all. I like the design of the Trailblazer. It's got that kind of little mini SUV, kind of rugged look to it, especially the active. But even the other trims, it's got a nice purposeful proportion to it. And I was something else earlier this week that we'll talk about next week. But talking with, or listening to a Chevy designer talking about how they design their vehicles, Chevrolet's got kind of this, what they consider the spectrum of design across Chevrolet vehicles, from velocity to strength. And one of the things you'll notice if you look at Chevy vehicles, depending on kind of what market segment they're targeted at, the stuff that is at the velocity end of that spectrum, like the cars, the Corvette, Camaro, even Malibu, and also the Trax and the Equinox EV, they all have round wheel arches, and they tend to have a sleeker front end. And then at the opposite end of the spectrum, the strength end of the spectrum, that's where you get your trucks and your SUVs, the more rugged looking vehicles. And they have, more upright front fascias, and the wheel arches are more squared off, kind of like, if you not to the extreme anymore that they were back in the 70s. If you look at Chevy CK pickups from the 1970s, they had very square wheel arches. And so you still have some of that in there. It's not completely round like it is on the velocity end of the spectrum. And the Trailblazer is clearly targeted, at least for people who want to look like they can go, more off-road. This is clearly not really like the CX-50. It's more of a off-road visual, an off-road aesthetic than truly off-road capability. But with the active, you do get, all-terrain tires. One reason why, especially here in Michigan, why if I was choosing, I would choose the active over the RS if you want, high-end trim level, is the RS is on 19-inch alloy wheels with lower profile tires. The active is on 17s with a little bit taller sidewall, which is great for Michigan roads. We drove the Trailblazer yesterday from our home in Ypsilanti up to Pontiac, about an hour in each direction. Not ideal weather conditions this time of year, and it was fine. It handles the roads fine. It handles nasty weather fine. It's not something you're going to want to take into the deep woods, because it doesn't have the ground clearance for that. But with all-wheel drive, it can handle anything, normal driving conditions, even worse kind of weather conditions. So it's good in that respect. Last year it did get a mid-cycle refresh, so it got a slightly revised front end, slightly different headlights and grille and everything. And then the interior, they made a big update to the interior. So it's got the same kind of interior theme that we're seeing on all the other recent Chevy introductions, where this touchscreen is no longer embedded in the center stack. They've got this look like you have on the EVs, and like on the Blazer and the Equinox EV and the Silverado EV, and also the Trax and other stuff, where it's kind of slightly overlapping screens. So you have an 11-inch digital instrument cluster directly in front of the driver, and then slightly behind that and overlapped slightly, an 11-inch center touchscreen, which is tilted slightly towards the driver. It's an attractive look. It's functional. It works well. And like other Chevys, it still has physical controls for climate control. So you're not putting that stuff into the touchscreen, which is a good thing.
Yay.
And there's a decent amount of cargo space in the back. So it's if you want something that has a little bit more of that rugged look, and also offers all-wheel drive compared to the Trax, then the Trailblazer is a good choice. The 1.3 liter turbo, let me find that tab here again. The 1.3 liter turbo is 155 horsepower, and 174 foot-pounds of torque, which is, for a vehicle this size, is actually really good. It's got more than enough performance, for any type of driving you're going to do. Even the 1.2 liter, 137 horsepower, 162 foot-pounds of torque. It's been a while since I drove one of those, but that's still a decent amount of performance. So, performance is not going to be an issue. This is not a sports car, by any means, but it will provide the acceleration you need to safely merge onto the highway or do whatever you need to do. So I kind of like this car. I like the size of it. It's got a reasonably small footprint, so it's fairly easy to park. If you live in the city, so it's a good size for urban driving. So if you've got a combination of urban driving and nasty potholes, then this is a good combination to have. As I said, the base model starts around a little over 24 grand. The one that I have, the Active, which was loaded up with lots of options, so it was all-wheel drive. Grand total of $34,670, which is a bit on the pricey side. And there's some options in here that you could certainly forego. $1,500 dual pane panoramic sunroof. That's something you could probably go without. There's the driver confidence package for $400, which is rear cross traffic alert, rear park assist, and lane change alert with blind spot monitoring. That's actually a good one to have in there. That's something I would prefer that they would just bundle into the base price, make that standard. But
yeah, I feel like that should be base at this point.
Yeah, for $400, it's not too ridiculously expensive. $1,000 for the package with adaptive cruise control and the Bose premium sound system. $600 for the winter summer floor mat package.
What?
That's a little
how much
on the high side. $600, $595.
Oh my God.
Those sensors that keep you from ramming into things, $400.
Yeah,
but little carpets, $600.
$600.
well, they are nice rubber floor mats.
Little rugs, little rubber rugs that you get from WeatherTech for a lot less.
Yeah, so you might want to shop elsewhere for your floor mats, but and then $1,200 for the convenience package, hands-free liftgate. Which one thing they did nice on that. I don't think this one has puddle lamps, but it does have like the equivalent of a puddle lamp where it projects the Chevy bow tie logo on the floor where you're supposed to kick in order to open the lift gate hands-free. Although, it's not that hard to open the lift gate by yourself.
WeatherTech, first and second row, $109.
Yeah, there you go. And WeatherTech
looking at show.
There you go.
There you go.
So the Active, is the Active all-wheel drive's 28.7. And so depending on how aggressive you are with the option sheet, you could probably get a pretty nice Active, out the door for about $30,000. And do you want to guess on the destination charge?
Oh, $1,200.
Oh, I was gonna say $895. I was gonna go on the short side.
Okay. Robbie wins $1,295.
Oh, there you go.
You could have gone $1,201 and you would have had
gone $1,201.
I could have. It came to my head. That's what came to my head.
Or $1.
So I just went with it.
The only thing that is slightly disappointing, given that this is a relatively small vehicle, fuel economy is not great. it's EPA rated at 26 city, 29 highway, 27 combined, and I'm averaging right around 27 with mostly highway driving. Now, granted, it's also very cold, and there's been a fair amount of it has been snow and slush and everything, which does degrade from it. So I could probably in better weather conditions, I could probably get closer to that 29 all around. So for this size of vehicle, with a relatively small engine, it's not spectacular fuel economy. My wife's 7-year-old Honda Civic is still getting about 34 miles per gallon. So that's something to consider when you have a slightly taller vehicle like this with more all-terrain style tires on it. And all-wheel drive, you are going to give up some. It's going to cost you more in fuel. But other than that, it is genuinely quite a nice vehicle. I do like it. It doesn't have the really high-end material feel of the Mazda, of any Mazda for that matter. But the materials, even where it's hard plastics, are nicely textured. It looks good. It doesn't look cheap, and especially with the interior redesign they did last year, it definitely has a more premium look to it than it did before, and it's quite functional as well. So good stuff. That's the 2024 Chevy Trailblazer all-wheel drive active. Okay. Let's get into some of the stuff happening this week. Stellantis dropped a teaser image and a little teaser video, which doesn't really show you much of anything, but they did drop a teaser image.
Bee.
Yeah,
as you do
of the Jeep Wagoneer S. And at least for now, it appears they're sticking with that name. When they first showed this as a concept about a year and a half ago, they said, this probably won't be the name for production. Maybe it will be. They're still calling it the Wagoneer S. They haven't given it a different name. So this is the what may well be the first battery electric Jeep for North America. At least there's the Avenger in Europe, and it's a front end view with the lit up grille. At least from the front, it doesn't look like it has changed notably from the concept, which looked like it was more Grand Cherokee size than Wagoneer size, which is probably a good thing. Any thoughts on this?
It looks fine. There's not a lot of detail there. It's just
they got some new lights. Let's listen. If the LED people in the world are doing great.
There are fancy lights on the front.
If you're in the LED business,
lot of fancy lights.
You're doing good.
You're doing outstanding. LED suppliers, well played.
Nicely done, gentlemen.
Nicely done.
Yeah, there are a couple of technical details. It will have 600 horsepower, 0 to 60 time of 3.5 seconds. So that puts it, in the performance ballpark with the now defunct Grand Cherokee Trackhawk.
But why? I know we don't need fast giant.
And this is going to be the first
quick. We don't need quick giant SUVs. Just settle down, everybody.
Haven't they? Am I wrong? Have they announced the Wrangler officially as an electric? I thought they did.
In the UAW contract agreement, they had they listed a bunch of factories and products that they're going to be getting over the course of the contract, and the Wrangler BEV is scheduled for 2026 in Toledo.
Oh, so it's a ways away.
Yeah, but they do. Okay. They also have the Jeep Recon.
2026.
That's coming.
What's the Recon?
The Recon is that other concept that they showed. So it's kind of Wrangler sized. But
that's what I'm thinking of. You just nailed. That's exactly what I'm thinking of. I'm like, what did I think? Okay.
It's a 4-door Wrangler-sized vehicle, still going to have removable doors, but shifts more in the direction of Bronco. So
it's like a baby Bronco.
That's totally what I was thinking of, Sam. Not the Wrangler. You're right. I'm like, there was another one. Okay, is that one coming? That's after this as well, though.
It's not clear what the timing sequence is.
Okay.
They should be. They should both be coming out sometime this year.
Pretty close. Yeah. Okay, so both this year.
So the Wagoneer S comes out in the fall. It'll be one of the first vehicles on the new STLA Large platform, which will get more into in a minute, but 600 horsepower from dual motor setup and 3.5 seconds 0 to 60, which is a lot.
Why? Why?
I
Slow down. No, stop it. Everyone stop it. Just stop it. We're not.
Robbie has
Stop.
had enough, people. Stop.
I've had enough. I've had quite enough of you and their giant machines that go incredibly too fast for being a giant machine. It's an SUV. It doesn't know to go 3.5 seconds. Just tossing children around in the back seat like a crazy person. Look what I can do. That's what you're doing with your Jeep Wagoneer S insanity. Sorry, carry on.
No, you're absolutely right. I agree with you 110%. We have the industry has conclusively proven that yes, EVs can be faster than internal combustion vehicles. Mm-hmm. They can certainly accelerate faster. Okay, you made your point. Let's move on and have something more reasonable.
Yeah,
we don't need these vehicles that go this stupidly fast, because the reality is humans cannot handle this kind of speed.
It's not. Yeah, your average person should not be going 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds in anything, to be honest.
Correct.
Yeah,
true.
And I'm
certainly
sorry.
Not on public roads.
Certainly not on public roads. And I'm sorry, but before I started doing this job, there was no reason for me to ever do that fast, because I just didn't have the chops behind the wheel. I was a pretty good driver, but as soon as I started doing this job, I'm like, oh, wait.
Well, realistically, when is there ever an opportunity to really take advantage, truly, honest to goodnessly, take advantage of all of that power? You're on a highway and you floor it, you get that for 2 seconds. It's 3 seconds.
You're behind someone.
Right?
I did it.
It's not, you have to be on a track somewhere, and who's doing that? Like us, you know what I mean?
In a Wagoneer.
I mean, that
Wagoneer, yeah.
That level of power, actually, or at least the torque that's associated with it, could be useful if you're towing a heavy load.
That's true.
But
then you're
that's also problematic. That's also problematic with an EV, which we'll also get to in a few minutes. But yeah, I mean, you don't need this kind of performance, no matter what Elon Musk tells you. You should.
Yeah, that's where it started.
Manufacturers should not be selling this kind of performance to consumers. It's just irresponsible.
Yeah, it's going to get bad at some point, especially in cities when people are trying to go from green light to green light.
But interestingly, they are retaining the 4xe branding. So, in the, like 2.5 paragraphs that they have here about it, it says offered exclusively as a BEV, the battery electric vehicle, the Wagoneer S offers standard 4xe capability. So it sounds like, 4xe is going to be the branding that they use for any four-wheel drive that has some degree of electric propulsion. So we've already seen it on the plug-in hybrid Wrangler and Grand Cherokee. It's apparently also going to be used on the battery electric vehicles as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
So when you're driving, because if like I saw Rubicon, it was all white, it's all Rubicon. Yeah. And then I saw the little blue little toe. Then I'm like, oh, it's a 4xe, and as I drove by, and a little 4xe in the back. I was like, oh, I should tell Nicole she has a friend.
Oh, just one.
I mean, no, I feel. I mean, it's a number. It's the Lance. That's their the surprise runaway hit is their 4xe. So
yeah.
Well, they're like, oh, people want this. Oh gosh, we didn't realize. It's like the Maverick. They're like, people want a small truck that doesn't cost $70,000. That's crazy.
Surprise.
One thing to keep in mind on the Jeep 4xe side on the plug-in hybrids is it's unclear as to how much of it is actually consumer demand versus what Jeep is actually willing to give consumers, because in a lot of states like the California and the other states that follow their zero emission vehicle requirements, Jeep is only allowing dealers to stock to order for stock 4xes. So if you're in California or Colorado or Washington, and dealers, they order vehicles that don't have a customer associated with them yet. That's for their inventory. Jeep is only allowing them to order the 4xe versions. If a customer,
if you want a regular Jeep, you got to order it.
If a customer
yourself.
wants a Pentastar or just a 2-liter turbo or a 392, they can order it in those states, but it won't be available out of dealer inventory.
It seems like a weird thing that people would be like, I need a Jeep. Well, here's a plug-in hybrid. They're like, good enough. And they just walk out.
Sure, fine, whatever. I'll take it.
Whatever.
It's aside from the 392, this is the most powerful Wrangler you can get. Oh, okay, cool. Let's do it.
Yeah, you can plug it in, drive around 20 miles, not use gas. Like, wait, what? You can be quiet. You can sneak up on deer.
You can be stealthy.
Yeah,
sneak up on deer.
So the platform that's going to be underneath the Wagoneer S is one of 4 EV platforms that Stellantis is developing. There's the STLA Small, which is the one that they use in Europe for a number of vehicles, including that Renegade. There's STLA Mid and STLA Large, and then there's also the STLA Frame, which is what they're using for the Ram 1500 Rev and the Ram Charger. The STLA Large is their largest sort of mainstream unibody architecture. And I guess earlier this week, there was a media roundtable that Elisa Priddle from Motor Trend participated in. And Carlos Tavares, the CEO of Stellantis, dropped some new information in there. There's been some speculation for a while that the Dodge Charger would also be available, because they showed that Charger concept in 2022 as, the Dodge Charger SRT, or Dodge Charger Daytona SRT, as a, really high-end battery electric coupe. But they didn't, they haven't revealed much other detail. And there's been some speculation that they would also offer it with internal combustion engines. Well, they finally confirmed during this roundtable that the STLA Large platform is designed to accommodate both hybrid and battery electric propulsion propulsion So it sounds like there will be at least a hybrid version, into hybrid internal combustion version of the Charger, and most likely using the Hurricane twin turbo inline 6 as the engine there. And any thoughts on this? You've seen the images that they showed of one of the first pre-production Chargers out of the assembly plant, haven't you?
Yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah, I mean, it basically looks almost exactly the same as the concept.
Yeah, good job. Good job with that. That's like, hey, we made it. The concept looks cool, awesome. Here's the car, and you're like, boo. Just if you make an awesome concept, just figure, without, while still following like safety regulations, blah blah blah. But you should be thinking about that. Start thinking about that while you're making the concept. How's that? How about you're like, we can't have the concept have spikes in the front because we're not going to be allowed to have spikes in the front when the car comes to market. Yeah, you probably won't.
Or really sharp edges everywhere.
Yeah, super sharp edge. Like it drives by, just slices a leg off. You're like, no, that's not. No, come on. And I think it'll keep the Charger people happy because they'll still get to go brum. When they get on the freeway entrance near my house. It's literally all I hear all day is Chargers. Brum.
Chargers.
I'm like, come on, guys.
Hellcats.
Come on.
Hellcats everywhere.
Hellcat is silly with
everywhere.
Hellcats everywhere. My neighborhood is Hellcats and EVs. It's just
You're silly with Hellcats.
Silly with Hellcats. Yeah, and a lot of trucks. I think every suburb is just silly with trucks as well. That don't ever haul anything. But there are some. There's some people on the edge of town that they have horses and. There's a lot of ranches up here. I don't think people realize Northern California is pretty. There's a lot of agriculture.
I thought all they had in California was EVs. I mean, people drive other cars. Shock.
Yeah, no, it's bonkers. It's weird. But you drive by a house and you'll see like a big F-150 all dirty and with a horse trailer and so I think, and then a Mach-E. So that's
they balance.
I literally saw that the other day. I was like, this Mach-E pulled into this like house, and there were like horses, and so, but there's also like a big F-150 and a big horse trailer, and I'm like, well, they figured it out. They're driving around their Mach-E all day, like taking care of stuff, and then when they have to take the horses somewhere or the cattle or I don't know, the soccer team, I guess, just throw them in the horse trailer. There's a lot of them. They can do it with the F-150, yeah.
Put some lawn chairs back there,
Right.
Lawn chairs.
They'll be good.
Yeah, my uncle has a ranch. He has a F-250. And then my other cousin, no, he's my uncle as well, sorry. He works at a Mercedes dealer. He Honda Odyssey because he has kids. I'm like, you see, that's the right decision. He's like, It's great. It's a great car. So very proud of the family and their decisions.
I'm glad that they're
all of them live in Northern California. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, we gotta. Never mind.
So between now and 2026, there's going to be 8 vehicles launched off of the STLA Large platform, starting with the Charger, and also the Wagoneer S, and then presumably some Chrysler vehicles at some point. There's also going to be Alfa Romeo and Maserati vehicles that are using this. So the replacement for the Giulia and the Stelvio will probably be built off of, or actually those will probably be off the Stella Mid. There's a larger Alfa Romeo SUV coming that'll probably be off this platform, it's also, they're going to have versions with both 400 and 800 volt electrical systems. The 400 volts is going to launch first, that followed by the 800 volt, and that'll be like the replacement for the Hellcat, with the big motors, up to it can accommodate battery packs up to 118 kilowatt hours, 500 miles of range. So it's should be some good stuff coming. And
minivan Pacifica, EV Pacifica.
Yeah.
800 volt EV Pacifica. Yeah, that's the jam. That's the jam right there.
600 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds.
I don't need that much.
Because they're saying it's going to be 400 volts first.
My dogs are going to be all flopped and about in the back of this minivan now. I don't need that much power. I just need to get from here to here with my dog. Like, especially if you're hauling things. Like, the last thing you want is like this insane 0 to 60 time. It's like, everything just fell over.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a mess in the trunk now.
Your Daft Punk helmets just got crushed by
exactly.
fire.
I can't tell you how many Pacifica minivans. Well, they are what are they called? The Voyager. That's the
the Voyager is the base version,
the rental only version. I think
the rental only version. Yeah, they're filled with like random gear, and I'm like, don't go fast, don't go fast, don't go fast, slow down.
All right. There was also another EV announcement that came out of Stellantis this week. They're finally starting to offer the Promaster EV from Ram, which is a big electric cargo van. So you now have a second, or technically at least a second choice for consumers. I mean, it's mostly intended for fleets, but they've had a version of this. The ProMaster is based on the Fiat Ducato, and they've been selling the electric version in Europe for a couple of years, and now it's finally available here with 160 mile range, which is quite a bit better than the Ford E-Transit, and similar, I think, to what the Rivian van. I saw quite a few of those yesterday. The Rivian electric vans coming out of an Amazon warehouse.
Oh, that's right. Is that the big? Are they just doing Rivians? Is that Amazon's only?
No. Amazon has also placed orders for ProMaster EVs, E-Transits, and Mercedes E-Sprinters.
So they have a little bit of everything.
Yeah. The only one that I haven't heard them place any orders for is the Bright Drop from GM.
I wonder why.
Depending on what you need, for fleets, they're offering the ProMaster EV with either 50 kilowatt, 85 kilowatt, 125 kilowatt, or 150 kilowatt charging, depending on the needs of your fleet, and 11 kilowatt AC charging. And this is a pretty big van, 524 cubic feet of cargo space.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So, a few, probably 5 or 6 years ago, I helped my daughter move, and we fit her entire apartment into a ProMaster.
No kidding.
Tall body, tall roof, a high roof, long body ProMaster, and the entire thing fit in there, no problem at all. So,
that's very cool.
Yeah. And did that all in one load.
And I think people are like, oh my God, only just 162 miles of range. This is for driving around. This is for like local deliveries, thing. You're
plumbers, all kinds of stuff like that.
Like if a plumber, like we're looking to do some work on the house, and we're like, well, the person moved like 20 miles away, but they still might come to your town and do work.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, like there's a good guy, but he moved like 3 towns over, so you might need to talk to him to see if he'll come back to your town to do the
Right?
work.
Because it only goes so far. They charge you extra, a lot of these guys.
Yeah, they're like, well, I work here. This is where there's more than enough work for me to work in this one town and maybe the next town over, but 2 towns over.
That's getting crazy.
Like the E-Transit's rated at, I think, 126 miles, and Ford, has said, from the data that they collect from the telematics service that they provide for fleets, average daily use, is less, it's like 70 miles.
Yeah, so they're well within that. Yeah.
So, it's not, what none of these guys have said is, for that 126 miles or 160 miles, how much of a load are they carrying when they do that range?
That's true.
But still, at most of these are not operating at highway speeds most of the time. They're generally operating for, city speeds,
right,
25 to 40 miles an hour. So it's not going to be as huge a difference. And, because unlike a trailer, where aerodynamics have a big effect, when everything is inside the van, the payload has some effect, but it's not as huge as the effect, the aerodynamic drag of a giant trailer. So,
yeah.
So now you have the option of a Ram Promaster EV if you want to build your next camper or something like that.
So many vans. I'm gonna go drive the E-Spinner in a few weeks, so I'll tell you all about that when that happens. Yeah.
All right. Well,
I like vans.
Speaking of towing with EVs,
like a child. Sorry, everyone.
I don't know if either of you two ever watched the JerryRigEverything channel on YouTube.
No,
I have not.
Zach Nelson, who does those videos, he does some pretty interesting stuff. He actually had a really good video of last year. He visited a battery recycling factory and walked through the whole process of how they recycle lithium-ion batteries, which was pretty interesting. But he, among the other things, he took an old military Humvee and converted it to electric. Oh. And it's got about 100 miles of range. This thing's enormous. I mean, what the classic military Humvees are like.
Yeah.
Well, he's been doing some towing tests using that as the ballast, putting that thing on a trailer and using it to tow with electric trucks. He's previously done this. He has a Rivian R1T. He's done this towing test with an F-150 Lightning. The R1T went. So this was, with that Hummer on it and the trailer, it's just over 10,000 pounds, and the Rivian went about 100 miles towing that thing. The Lightning went about 130 miles, although the Rivian was in cold weather conditions. The Hummer was in warmer, or the Lightning was in warmer conditions. And he just did the same test with a Cybertruck. You want to guess how far the Cybertruck went towing the Hummer?
How far did it go? And it was cold weather, right? This was
30 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet, 35 feet.
Oh, come on. It's not that bad.
100 miles.
Nicole?
That's my guess.
Your guess?
75.
90 miles.
90.
Oh,
okay.
I was close.
Yeah, but you went over, so you lose.
I do lose,
yeah.
You Nicole wins. Good job. You're a winner.
Yeah, it went 90 miles. And there were some good things that he pointed out about it. Its maneuverability with the 4-wheel steering and everything. But also things like the mirror. The interior rearview mirror is unusable if you have the rear tonneau closed, because you got that sloped back.
It up.
There's zero visibility out the back. You have to use the camera. And having the display for that down in the center screen instead of up in front of you, or up where the mirror would normally be is not as useful. But when he opened up the tonneau, to try to use the mirror, the rear window of the cab is a very narrow slot, and they put the cheapest ass mirror in this thing. I mean, really, and it shakes. And it's very distorted. So just don't even bother trying to use the mirror. Yeah.
You get one of those. Maybe you can replace it one of those camera mirrors that people.
Well, they have a camera mirror system standard.
It shakes. But it's also shaky because it's janky.
No, the camera mirror is fine.
Oh,
because it doesn't just, unlike all the other cars with a camera mirror, it actually doesn't actually display on the mirror. It displays on the touchscreen.
Oh, okay. All right, that's fine.
But which means you have to look down away from the road to see it.
Which is less. Oh well, what are you gonna do?
Better than nothing. But so no, should not be surprising. No miracles have been executed here in terms of the ability to tow long distances with an electric truck, or frankly any other truck. But so if you want to tow long distances, you probably want to stay with an internal combustion truck for the time being. Other applications, EV trucks work great, just not long distance towing.
Yeah,
that's not
there yet. We're not there yet.
So let's keep the F-150 and get the Mach-E to drive around town, just like those people whose house I drove by the other day.
Exactly, they nailed it.
Exactly. All right. So which automaker do you think will be the first to deploy humanoid robots in their factory?
Oh man, this is you know what? I'm going to say Hyundai.
I would have said Hyundai.
Because they got Boston Dynamics. I know. Yeah,
with
BMW like, hey, BMW is like, hey, we got humanoid robots, and Tesla's like, hey,
and their robot.
Yeah, and they got that as well. But Hyundai, they have the robots.
Yeah,
the robots we've been seeing for years. They have
Atlas,
those.
I think, is the name of the humanoid robot.
Yeah. So
actually, it's not them. It's BMW. Amazingly enough. They're getting, I think, 5 humanoid robots from a company called Figure, and they are going to test them out at their factory in Spartanburg, South Carolina.
I feel like they're just going to keep falling over. And then someone has to come over, pick them up, and two guys.
These are very, very Terminator-y.
They do. They've got that very metallic look of the Terminator robot, or a Cylon, from Battlestar Galactica.
Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, we need more BSG references in this show.
Yeah. So
there you go.
The Cylon Centurions. It's got very much that look of a Terminator.
Oh look. Yeah, that's true.
These
are not friendly looking robots.
They are creepy. I don't want to work alongside those.
You know what's funny is that I went to the Hyundai factory in Singapore where they're like trying out new things, and some of the stuff that they use humans, like us, to put in the car, like Hyundai's able to do with robots, like that don't look like this, just the big arms, like
just industrial industrial robots,
like seats and the dash, like putting in the dash in.
Why does that have to look like us? That's what actually makes it creepy.
That's the thing.
Like, why make this look like us?
We've been using robots in factories for 40 years.
Like, it doesn't need to. Hyundai.
Why do we need to make this like a human? It's not like it's not an application where
give it another leg or two.
Like would be necessary. It's like it's in a manufacturing facility. Just make it do that without looking like a Terminator.
Dun, 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 dun,
except for low volume, very expensive cars that are basically hand built. Things like, I remember going to the Audi R8 factory back in 2008 or 9. And seeing the guys in the shop there welding up the aluminum frame by hand. They put the parts in the jig and they weld beautiful, amazing welds in there. Aside from that sort of thing, pretty much every mass production vehicle built in the last 40 years has been completely welded up by robots. Almost all the painting is done by robots. And it works. We have technology that works really, really well. It's not necessarily compatible with having a human right next to it, but frankly, you probably don't want humans in your paint shop anyway, and you probably don't want humans doing around the welding anyway because it's dangerous. But BMW is supposedly going to put these into some of the manufacturing processes, including the body shop, sheet metal, and warehouse in the next 12 to 24 months after they train them to do specific tasks. Again,
I don't. Why? Yeah, like to Nicole's point, why do they have to look like people?
Yeah, it seems like look like people.
It's like we're just baiting them. Come on, overthrow us. Come on. We're just poking the bear.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
They're gonna make the robot look like a giant bear.
There are things, that there are consequences that may be unintended but are fairly easily predictable. And if we can predict bad consequences, we should probably do what we can to avoid them instead of building into them.
Has no one watched a sci-fi movie in the last 40 years? Is that
ever in their whole life?
Every sci-fi. Oh well, what are you gonna do? Guess we're gonna be nice I'm gonna be nice to the robots. So when the uprising comes up, I'll be like, oh hey, he's a friend. Just throwing that out there.
Sort of sticking with the robotic topic. Last year, Ford filed a patent for a self-repossessing vehicle.
That's another scary bit.
Yeah, presumably, if you forget to make your payments on your F-150 or your Mach-E, it can drive itself back to the dealership. Would be the idea. Ford has apparently decided to let that application expire.
Oh no,
they're not going to pursue it. So they will still have to send out a repo man to take back that car that you have not made your payments on.
Yeah, someone's still taking your car. Except now
it's just not automatic. It's not taking itself.
It's someone with a very a questionable tattue choice is still
most likely, yes.
Yeah,
maybe a mullet.
They're like, hey, listen, I liked Beavis and Butthead as a kid. Okay, I didn't really think about it. I didn't think it through.
One of the highlights of the Japan Mobility Show in October was the Mazda Iconic SP concept. An RX-7 sized sports car, 2-door coupe, with what was described as a 2-rotor hybrid or plug-in hybrid powertrain. And apparently Mazda has gone ahead and formed a development team to actually pursue building something with a Wankel rotary engine for production. We don't know yet exactly what it will be, but they're moving forward with it.
I feel like this happens every few years, though. Like for this time,
I feel like this time we're doing it. Okay, silence. We're doing it. Okay, silence. It's just
maybe this time. In Europe they had it. I guess.
Yeah, they do. They do have the MX-30 with a rotary plug-in hybrid system in Europe and also I think also in Japan. But I don't know. I would love to see them build the Iconic SP. But I think I would just as soon have them do it just as a straight up BEV, or I don't know that they're ever going to be able to make a new rotary, pass modern emissions and fuel economy standards.
Yeah, if this came out 200-mile BEV, people would be all over it.
I know it's a beautiful car.
They would lose their damn minds. Just throwing all their money. Mazda couldn't make enough of them.
Yeah.
This thing is beautiful.
It is a gorgeous car. Man, it's beautiful.
Yeah, this is just give us what we want, Mazda.
You would not be able to drive it most of the year here. I'm looking at how low it is in the
Listen, I live in California, so
you can drive it. You could get it.
I can drive it all the time.
I would be happy driving it, 8-9 months of the year.
Yes, yeah. Snow. As soon as it was snow and ice, that would be
just
end.
Park it next to the Miata after that,
and drive the pickup truck you have,
or the Civic,
or the Civic.
Just get a Subaru.
Yeah,
be done.
So when I went to Dearborn the other day, I was there to get sort of the first hands-on experience of the new Ford Digital Experience, which is their new infotainment system. I actually got a first little look at this last summer when Lincoln did the backgrounder for the new 2025 Nautilus, which is coming out in a couple of months. And at that time, they had the system locked, but I was sitting in the car and it said enter PIN number to unlock it, and so I just tapped in 0000 and it unlocked. And so I did play around with it for a few minutes then. But this is their new Android Automotive based system, and it is debuting on the on the Nautilus, on the 2025 Nautilus. And it's got Google services built in. And the Nautilus is going to be their first product in North America to have a full width display, 48-inch display that spans the entire dashboard. They already have a couple of models in China that have this, the Zephyr, and there's also a crossover in Lincoln or Ford crossover in China that has this kind of display, but they use a completely different infotainment system. So this is their first Google-based infotainment system here. Did you both have a chance to look at the video? And
I got a chance to scrub through it. So all I know is thanks a lot, Biden.
Yeah.
I watched the whole thing. I watched the whole video, and it was I couldn't it was hard because I'm not sitting in the driver's seat, right? Like clearly you were sitting in the driver's seat watching this, but it looks like so much screen in that video. And especially
it is a lot of screen.
They because there's the instrument cluster, there's a traditional what we'd say infotainment screen that's there, and then this really long piece that's the, what do they call it? So whatever, the door-to-door screen there,
coast to coast, the very far side by the passenger. I don't know how you'd see that without full on
you gotta turn your head.
Right. It's not I feel like if you're just trying to glance, you can't glance at that. You're going to have to turn all the way. And I know they keep stuff like the instrument cluster still right in front of you. And it looked like navigation. The navigation that was right next to it, Sam, is that always next to it? It's always nav right next to it?
Yes.
So the things you need to see, right, are right there. But then all the other little widgety bits off to the side, I don't think you can. Could you see those without really having to turn your head?
I mean, you can. I mean, they're fairly large. The fonts are large.
Okay.
They're pretty readable. At least sitting there static. I mean, we didn't get to drive them yet. We're going to be driving these in early March. So, and they basically describe it as kind of three segments of the screen. You've got the driver stuff that you need all the time right in front of you, which is exactly where it should be. Not down on the center screen where you're looking away from the road to see what your speed is. It's right up in front of you. And I do, several years ago, back in 2019, before the pandemic, and before Biden went belly up, I visited their tech center in Santa Clara, California, and I went for a ride in one of their prototypes, and then also spent some time with their head of user experience, in a buck in the studio, playing around with this system, this full width display system. And conceptually, I like the idea, of having the screen, it's up a little bit higher. It's at the base of the windshield. It's pushed away from the driver. And, so it's closer to your line of sight when you're driving. So, it's right there, it's in your peripheral vision all the time when you're driving.
Sam, does it, because you asked the guy about a head-up display and they don't have one right now. Does it put kind of like the instrument cluster almost where you feel like your eyes are looking when you look at a head-up display? It's pretty
close to it. Yeah. So it's right at the base of the windshield. It's not as high up as it would be with a HUD.
Okay.
It's close to it.
But it's close to.
It's up higher, and the steering wheel in the Nautilus, is kind of square, a little more squared off. So the top is chopped off like the bottom is, so kind of like what you find in a Corvette or the wheel in the Cybertruck for that matter, or Lucid, so the screen is above, and unlike in the Toyota BZ4X and the Prius, where they've kind of done something similar, because the top part of the wheel is sort of flattened out a little bit. The wheel doesn't cover up the display.
Right.
So you get the driver information right in front, and then just off to the right of that is the navigation, which is there all the time. And then the left-hand side, you can put up to 3 widgets on there, on the right-hand side, the right-hand side, you can put up to 3 glanceable widgets up there, and they have there's a bunch of different things. You can see it in the video, but usually things like weather and tire pressure information, why you would necessarily want that there. I'm just like, if my tire pressure is getting low, just pop it up in front of me,
Yeah, right. But also the weather is I guess fine, but you're driving outside and you kind of know.
It's raining.
So it's not a surprise. It's not oh man, I wonder if it's raining. Let me check the weather.
It'll be real interesting once we get a chance to drive this to see what it's actually like. In the Byton, what they did on the right-hand side was information basically just for the passenger. So the passenger could interact with that information. It wasn't really designed for the driver to use.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Like, it looks like it's, and when you have things like weather, whatever random widgets you're going to put up there, it did kind of feel like the sort of thing that you might pick it but almost figuring like, well, my passenger might care what that is. Like, I can't see you having information you'd want to look out while you're driving reliably all the way over there on the right-hand side.
Yeah. None of it. Yeah.
The screen looks really nice. It's a full array local dimming LCD screen. So, really high contrast, very bright.
Yeah, even on your video, and it's just like a video, I'm like, oh, this is going to be really pretty in real life. Like, it looks like it's a good screen. Yeah.
And if you're using CarPlay, and using Apple Maps instead of Google Maps, it will project the Apple Maps up into the same place where the Google Maps would normally sit, in that same spot, just to the right of the driver information. Or you can also download Waze from the Google Play Store. And if you want to use Waze, it'll pop up in there. So whichever map you're using will pop up in that map section of the screen.
Which is nice. So you get whatever you prefer is up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's neat. I'm actually really.
It's neat, but I don't see that
I'm
why.
looking forward to.
I don't understand why.
And experiencing it. Like, I want to see. Does it make my Does it? It's hard to wrap my head around just looking at pictures. Like, what is this going to be like to drive this? Am I going to find that this is better, the same as, or worse than the sort of more usual setups that we have? I'm really curious to see if I find that extra foot and a half of screen or whatever it is over there.
Well, you need to know what.
Wow, now that's there, I could never go back.
And they will also have versions of the same system with a more traditional setup with instrument cluster display in front of the driver and center stack display. They didn't show that to us in a car. They just had it, on a benchtop setup.
So would that be like for like the Nautilus? They're going to offer the Nautilus with both those options?
No, the Nautilus will only have
some
that.
Of the cars.
Yeah,
okay.
So because this is going to be rolling out across the lineup over the next couple of years as they update models.
I get it. So it depends on the model. Okay.
Yeah. So there's something else that I'm going to be going to a backgrounder tomorrow that we won't be able to talk about for a couple more weeks. That will probably have that layout in there, and for other vehicles. Other interesting thing, as vehicles get this Android based system, they will not have sync branding on them anymore. So current stuff that is still Sync 3 or Sync 4 retains the sync branding, but the new stuff is either Ford Digital Experience or Lincoln Digital Experience.
So Digital Experience is the new, instead of Sync, instead of Ford Sync, it's Digital Experience. Okay.
Yeah. It's like you've gone to a conference.
Come to the Digital Experience.
Yeah. I don't know. I keep looking at this thing and I'm like, I don't see the point of having this super wide screen. There's no extra. There's no extra information that I need. That I need an additional screen that I have to turn my head even more to look at than I would versus the center.
It'll be interesting to drive with this. I'm actually really looking forward to driving with all this screen to see what it's actually like to drive with it.
Right. And the thing, you can also do is, you don't have to have any widgets on there. It can just have a nice wallpaper on there. So it looks nice for the passenger and you don't have to actually have any information over there if you don't want to.
You know what they could have done is gotten rid of that screen and put some buttons back in the car, but I'm just a whole other...
come on. Let's not go overboard
buttons. Here. Oh, don't go crazy, Robbie.
I know. Not the thing that people want. Here's another thing.
Ford is not one of the companies that is opting to ditch the touch controls for the climate control.
Does it still have? I don't.
Yeah, they still have them.
There's the center touch. There's also the second center touch screen, and the climate controls are on there. They are permanent. They always show up across the bottom of that screen.
They don't change.
Yeah, so they're always available there, but they're still touch controls. But you have the choice of using either Google Assistant or Amazon's Alexa voice services to control those vehicle functions, like set the temperature, with whichever assistant you prefer. So you don't actually have to use the touchscreen. And I've used that, and it works fine. Either one of them work reasonably well for that. I haven't had any issues with that, but So that's an option as well.
I just drove the EV9, and you know what it had? Buttons.
I know. And
it was cold. I made it hot with my finger.
And Volkswagen's going back to buttons.
Everyone's going back to buttons.
Hyundai's going back to buttons. Yeah. So
is the digital experience then just slightly behind the curve? Wait, I thought we were going away from buttons. No,
it's in the name. It's only digital.
Yeah.
Come with us to the not all digital experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. I spoke earlier this week with our friend Andrey Smirnov from TFL Trucks for a video that just posted this morning as we were recording this. And the video is talking about some of the issues, because the TFL guys, they test a lot of trucks that have been modified, lift kits and bigger tires and all that sort of stuff, for going off-road. And so Andrey talked to myself, the CEO of AEV, American Expedition Vehicles, and a lawyer about some of the issues around these modified trucks and, why you can, what are some of the problems you can have with them? What are why do automakers, sometimes do some kinds of modifications, but not other modifications? It's good video. The link is in the show notes. Definitely recommend you go watch that from TFL Trucks. And we're going to have to get Andrey and Roman on the show one of these days.
That'd be great.
To talk with us as well. Get those guys as guests here.
TFL party. Woo, woo.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And then finally, there's a short video that I found on Threads this morning, and we were discussing it before we started recording.
I got problems with this video because
Robbie doesn't believe the video.
So
I don't know.
The caption on it is more software-defined vehicle problems, and there it is as often is the case. The way the video is shot and cropped. It may not be entirely representative of what is being implied, but it is kind of amusing, and it is absolutely possible that this could happen. They don't specifically identify the vehicle, but from looking at it in the video, we figured out it is the Buick Envision. And basically, in the video, any button that the guy presses causes the horn to go off, except for the horn button, which has a completely different function in this particular vehicle.
And you can't always see where his hands are, which is Robbie's very legitimate.
Yeah, right? I'm calling shenanigans because it's close ups. There's not a wide shot. You can't see, if you want to look at it and call shenanigans.
You can voice. Are you in with Robbie that these are shenanigans, or is this legit?
It feels like shenanigans.
Given the other challenges we've seen with software in vehicles lately,
it is plausible. Whether this one is real or not, it is absolutely plausible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely go check it out. It's only 22 seconds long. Make up your own mind. Let us know what you think for next week. All right, let's talk about. Let's do some listener questions and comments.
What you want to know?
Let's see. First up, this is one I had intended to address last week and completely forgot, or maybe we ran out of time. I can't remember. We ran
out of time last week.
That was long. It. Yeah. But this was from Jeff D. He posted in Discord, in the Wheel Bearings Discord. And if you're not in the Discord, some fun conversations going on in there. Join it. If you need a link, send us an email at feedback@wheelbearings.media. Or send us your questions and comments there, or if you want to record a question, send it to us that way instead of writing it out, and we will include it in the show. So that's feedback@wheelbearings.media. Anyway, Jeff D commented when I talked about the Alfa Stelvio a couple weeks back. Said, tell me more about your thoughts about the Giulia versus the Stelvio. I'm starting to consider moving on from my 10-year-old BMW 128i. And the Giulia is something I've been considering since they seem to be a good value on the used market right now. But at the same time, getting in and out of a relatively low car seems to be getting harder and harder by the month. Oh. Also, if Nicole is there, and she is.
I'm here.
Tell us more about your cross-country road trip with Rebecca and her Stelvio. Was it a comfortable road tripper? How does the Stelvio do on the occasional twisties? And which of the two would you prefer to drive for? Which would you prefer for a daily driver?
So I'll address it from the whole point of view of having driven a lot of miles in that Stelvio. I like the Stelvio. If you're looking for sportier, you're going to go for the Giulia, but it is lower. But if you're looking for that real sports car kind of vibe, you're going to get it more out of the sedan than you are out of this SUV. That said, the Stelvio still has plenty of oomph. It handles really well on the twisties. Driving it with Rebecca across country, which was hours and hours and hours and hours, either in the passenger seat or behind the wheel, that was a comfortable car. Like it's the kind of drive where you would normally, if a car's not going to live up to road tripping, you're going to notice it because you just have so many days behind the wheel. It was really comfortable. We didn't run into any issues. It was good. We had a couple of spots when I want to say we were in Colorado even, and the roads were terrible. They'd had some bad weather and there was sand and that sort of packed ice and stuff. So it was almost that kind of like you get a lot of vibration. Didn't have it, but you could see that the roads were crud underneath the wheels, but it still handled really smoothly. Not only that, I drove the Stelvio quite a bit, not this year, but the year before in the US version of the Mille Miglia that they do in Virginia. And that is all twisties and turnies. Like you're on side roads in Virginia, going up and down hills, and you've got it. And that was an absolute hoot to drive in that. So I really enjoy driving the Stelvio. I think it's a great, if you're looking at an Alpha and you're trying like, oh, I don't want to get into the real low, like you're saying, getting out of the sedan gets harder as you get older. It's hard on your knees and your back and such. And you want something you can step into a little bit more instead of stepping up out of. I have no problem recommending the Stelvio. I enjoyed it. And they've recently, I don't know where it stands in the Stelvio because I had it on the, oh my God, what's one down from the Stelvio? I just forgot what it's called. Not the Hornet.
Tonale.
Denali. The infotainment has changed a little bit, so I'm not sure where it stands in the Stelvio right now.
They still have the older system.
They still have because there's a newer system in the Tonale that's a little bit better. So the infotainment isn't as nice as I would like it to be. It just doesn't function as well. I like the newer version of it better, but that wouldn't be enough to make me not get an Alpha. And certainly if you're thinking about going with something that's a little easier to get in and out of, but still want to have fun behind the wheel, the Stelvio works beautifully.
Yeah, and the Stelvio and Giulia have the exact same powertrain options. You have a 2-liter turbo with 275 horsepower, I think, or the Quadrifoglio with 505 horsepower twin turbo V6, which is absolutely a fantastic engine. Mm-hmm. They're both really good powertrain options. So you have the same powertrains in both. Same chassis basically. The Stelvio is just taller and slightly, and the other main difference is the Stelvio is all-wheel drive. The Giulia is only rear-wheel drive. No, there's no all-wheel drive Giulia. And then the ground clearance. So for example, if you live somewhere where it snows a lot, you probably want to go for the Stelvio, because I have firsthand experience trying to drive a Giulia Quadrifoglio in deep snow.
Did it not go well?
I mean, when you have like 4.5, 5 inches of ground clearance, it can only go so well when you have 10 inches of snow.
Okay, enough said.
Did you try just driving faster? Did you try going faster?
I did try that. But the problem is I have this corner that I have to take, last corner I have to take to get into my driveway. And when you have limited traction, it's the Stelvio is a better solution for that. So depending on where you live, the Stelvio is a better option. But as you said, they both drive actually surprisingly similarly. They're both very sporty feeling vehicles. The cabin is basically the same in both. Aside from sitting up a little bit higher in the Stelvio, there's not a lot of difference between the two. And of course, the Stelvio as a crossover, utility, if you like to, go out to estate sales and stuff like that on the weekends, or you have an active lifestyle and you need some extra cargo space in the back, it has that advantage of, even behind the rear seats, you've got a decent amount of cargo space, and you can fold the back seats down and put bigger stuff in there. So for a lot of people, it may be a more practical solution. If your personal physical mobility is not an issue, I personally, still prefer driving a sedan. But that's a personal preference, and at least for the time being, I can still get in and out of it without any great difficulties. But we're all getting older. So, there's going to be a point where that may no longer be the case. I can still get in and out of my Miata without difficulty. So thankfully that. Yeah, I mean, either one's a great choice. So,
and I actually did. I drove. I forget the exact trim that Rebecca has, but she does not have the Quadrifoglio, and that was not the super powerful version. Then I drove the Quadrifoglio when I drove in the U.S. warm up for the Mille Miglia. So I've driven both. You do notice a difference, but it wasn't like driving Rebecca's car. I was like, oh, this is lackluster.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
still super fun to drive. Like, you don't need the Quadrifoglio. If you want it, sure, go ahead, pay the extra money, get it. But you really don't need that to still have.
It does sound
some
phenomenal.
Oh, it sounds amazing. Yeah, but
Robbie, have you driven these, Julia?
I mean, you're driving a 128, so you probably live somewhere where you don't have to worry about too much snow. Julia, if you're concerned about getting in and out as you get older, it's going to be harder to get in and out of a low car. Yoga, just start doing yoga.
There you go.
Just start getting real limber.
There's the solution.
There's the solution. Yoga. It's good for you. Apparently, yoga. Just get the Julia, get yoga, get on with your life.
All right. Rob from LA sent a note last week when I was talking about the Pacifica. I made a tragic error.
This is funny, and I didn't catch it when you were talking either.
Says, you mentioned in the last episode about the Pacifica that there are only 3 choices: Pacifica, Carnival, and Sienna. I, of course, forgot to mention the Honda Odyssey.
Oops.
What happened to the Odyssey? Nothing happened. It's still here. It's still a great option. It doesn't have any hybrids or all-wheel drive, but otherwise it's still a great option. So
yeah, it's still
sorry, Honda. My bad. All right. Finally, Adam Jakolenko wrote in, says, idea: cue up some generic game show music in the soundboard and start a segment called Dealer Be Dealin', where people can share the silly experiences they've had with dealers recently. And here's where I will insert some generic game show music. Even if it doesn't take off, I got one for you. Get ready for my episode of Dealers Be Dealin', or Dealers Be Dealerin', I should say. Yeah, keep tabs on local cars. And a few weeks ago, the listed price of this exact Mach-E, and in the email he inserted a screenshot, was $58,000 for the last month or so. Attached is what changed to the same day Ford started passing through the $7,500 tax credit on leases. And it is still priced at this today. Fun times. And shockingly enough, the price went from $58,000 at the dealer, this particular dealer, and we shall shame him. Perry National City. Not sure where they're located. Let's see.
I'm going to Google and see if I can figure it out.
Perry National City, Ford, 22,000 Mach-E GT, $65,965, which shockingly is about $7,500 more than it was the day before.
They're in California, by the way.
Oh, National City, California.
National City, California. Yeah.
So Ford, decided to pass along the tax credit on a lease. So the dealer jacked up the price by $7,500.
Of course.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes. So avoid Perry National City Ford.
Yeah, because that's shady.
That's all for this week. And join me again next time for another rousing round of Dealers Be Dealerin'.
Thank you,
Adam. Thank you so much.
Love it.
And if anybody else has any of these kinds of Dealers Be Dealerin' episodes for us, please send them in. We would love to shame more dealers because they deserve it.
They do.
All right. I also have a interview that I did at CES with Paul Thomas, who is the president for mobility for Bosch North America. And we talked about a bunch of stuff that Bosch is doing, including interior cabin sensing, some of their ADAS stuff, electrification, some good stuff in this conversation. So we'll have that tacked on at the end here after we all say goodbye. And I can't forget to also thank our patrons for your support. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. All right. So, big part of yesterday's press conference and also the presentation we saw on Sunday morning. It was all about mobility and President of Mobility for the Americas. Sure, you've got some thoughts. Like one of the big things, big trends that I heard, especially from Sunday, was around in-cabin sensing. And this is a growing area across the industry. And for a company like Bosch, you've got a long history with sensing on the outside, looking out from the vehicle. Now looking in, can you talk a little bit about in-cabin sensing? What are some of the benefits of it, and what are some of the potential downsides we have to watch out for?
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of in-cabin sensing, you can use it for everything we stand for, right? So it could envision safety, right, for a child left behind or a dog in the car or anything along those lines, right? Because with radar, you can sense heartbeats, you can do lots of different things. In-vehicle sensing also allows you to look into driver distraction, right, which is also a problem as well nowadays. And I think there's even legislation eventually that's going to address driver distraction and what that does. And then you also can, in the ride-sharing environment, you can use interior sensing to sense the business that's happening on the vehicle as well. And interior sensing can be visual, it can be vocal, it can be olfactory as well. You can smell what's going on in the car. So there's so many opportunities to use interior sensing for all the right purposes. And that's why it's exciting for us. And the technology has to be very legitimate too. So the worst thing you could have is a false positive in an interior sensing situation that creates a safety maneuver, that creates a false message, or that delivers something wrong to the vehicle and the dynamics. So I wouldn't want lots of false. So accuracy is really important for us. You can use cameras for interior sensing. You can use radar. You can use LiDAR, which isn't as relevant. But typically, it's either some form of ultrasonic sensing, cameras, video, of course, video with camera, or radar.
And to your comment on false positives, one of the things that we saw in the presentation the other day, it had to do around with detecting drunk drivers.
Yeah.
You got the legislation from the infrastructure bill that is requiring NHTSA to come up with a regulation to mandate some sort of anti-drunk driving technology. Yeah. So false positives are really important there, trying to find the right balance. And
the legality of it always is also complicated, right? I mean, we don't want to be in a situation where the police say, hey, according to camera by company X, you were intoxicated, or there's under certain levels of impairment. We'll be willing to work with the government and things like that, but that's something that's real difficult for us. Because you can always sense by someone's eyes, the color of their pupils, the way that they're dilated and things like that. There's ways to come very close to understanding if someone is not in the right state of mind to drive a vehicle.
Yeah, and you mentioned the distraction, of course, drowsiness are big problems. I mean, in a lot of ways, they're as bad as being impaired. Even if somebody's not impaired, that's a serious issue when somebody's trying to control a vehicle.
Yeah, no, I mean, driver distraction. I mean, with the laws that we're even seeing. I live in Michigan. Are you in Michigan?
Yeah.
You can't even look at your phone anymore while you're driving. Well, I mean, when people look at their phones, they tend to sway a little bit or move off the lines, and I think that distraction is a bad thing. Connectivity brings distraction, though.
Yeah.
Right. So we want people to be connected, but you want to be connected at the right times. And if they are connected, you want them to be safe.
And with all the screens that we're putting in cars now, even if your phone is in your pocket, we still got all these screens that can be very distracting as well.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, no matter how hard you try to keep the driver from looking away from your screen into the passenger side. I mean, I've seen people with having phones just mounted on their windshield watching TV while they're driving.
Yeah. So is Bosch looking at also potential for integration of in-cabin sensing with ADAS systems to?
Yeah, I mean, we have a certain platform called RideCare and things along those lines where you can take a holistic approach, an overall vehicle approach to what's happening outside the vehicle and what's happening inside the vehicle. You can use interior sensing even for retail communications, like when you deliver your rental car bat, right? Interior sensing can tell people whether they've left a package in the back seat, whether the owner smoked in the car, or whether there's certain things that have happened that rental companies don't like to have happen, or even things that they do like to have happen. So I think sensing outside of the vehicle is very important for physical-based collision avoidance, for physical-based acknowledgement of the environment. But inside the car is getting more and more important.
Yeah.
Right. And even as you look at driver training and how driver training is now, changing, if you look at the world and how you get your license in the U.S. versus how you get your license in other countries, I believe you can use interior sensing to help improve the likelihood that
Coaching to drive.
Yeah, a better driver. Yeah.
Okay. One last thing on the in-cabin sensing is the topic of privacy. We got quite a few vehicles on the road now that have driver monitor systems.
Yeah.
We're getting into more advanced systems talked about, but even with that, with the driver monitor systems, there's concerns with people that this information might be recorded and might be used against them in the future.
It goes, if you think about traffic violations in Europe when people were driving by and it takes a picture of them, right? And you see their face and you're like, well, that guy was driving in the wrong area and it doesn't work out that well. I think that interior sensing, there's a fine line you need to follow. As far as information sharing and rights of people of being sensed inside their vehicle, there's ways to anonymously sense as well. I'm not as interested in someone's, let's say, distinct facial characteristics. I'm more interested in certain parts of their body and what it's doing that could be relatively anonymous.
Right. Are there indications that they might be having a medical emergency?
You could sense heartbeat, you could sense stroke activity. There's lots of things you can do, and I think some owners are just some people may feel real comfortable having that. At times when I'd like to have interior sensing in my vehicle, there's times where maybe people don't, and that's going to be the government turn off or turn on type discussion.
Okay. Let's move into a different area, electrification.
Sure.
Which is something that was talked about quite a bit yesterday. First, on the vehicle side, Bosch has expanded its investments in silicon carbide technology.
Yeah.
And so talk a little bit about that and what the benefits there.
Yeah, so silicon carbide is just not just. It's a great technology that improves the efficiency of anything that it's contained in. So versus older technologies or older silicon, if you move to a silicon carbide technology, you're automatically going to improve its efficiency. Given how it's used, the efficiency gains could be double digit, they could be single digit, but there will be efficiency gains. Those efficiency gains then really impact the amount of energy a vehicle uses. So how you choose to use that efficiency could be longer range of the vehicle, they could be faster charging of the vehicle, they could be improved torque or vehicle dynamics. So the fact that you can have more energy in the same or smaller package and convert that energy in a more efficient way is the perfect solution for electric vehicles, right? Because everything you hear about is range, time to charge, effectiveness of the vehicle to have range under different environmental conditions. And silicon carbide gives you all of it.
And silicon carbide, for listeners are familiar with it, is used chips that are used in the power inverters.
Yeah, you can use them. There's silicon carbide in lots of the consumer devices that even you'll see in the show today, but primarily for automotive usage, they go into the high-powered inverters that convert the energy into usable, that convert electrical energy into usable energy for the vehicle.
So like from DC to direct current in the battery to AC that we use the motors.
Correct.
What about other applications? For example, on the chargers, on DC chargers, they're taking in, unless they're hooked up to solar, they're taking in AC alternating current from the grid, and there you've got the inverter at the charger level. Is Bosch looking at utilizing that technology, silicon carbide or other technologies?
Yeah, sure. The beauty about silicon carbide is you can use it in multiple different ways. We want to compete at the die level, which means at the basic wafer level that you saw outside if you'd had a chance to view. We also can cut that die and put it into a power module. The power module can be used in a vehicle inverter or a charging inverter. And we also want to use it to build a power module that we put in our own inverters. So the beauty of it is we can supply now from the bare die all the way to the inverter from Bosch. Okay. And that's the beauty of silicon carbide for us. And our value chain of having the silicon carbide in California versus, let's say, somewhere in Southeast Asia is a great benefit. All right, there's lots of reasons why.
Yeah,
it's a
more supply chain resilience. Yeah, having a diversity of locations.
Correct.
There's disruptions from whether it's natural disasters or geopolitical issues.
Yeah, and we've been pretty clear in a lot of our press releases that the CHIPS Act is very much supportive of this, and we feel that we're in a very good position to try to work on getting some level of local funding, either from local governments or federal governments, to help expand silicon carbide.
You're producing silicon carbide today in Europe. The factory in Roseville, California, that you've invested in, when is that going to be produced?
Yeah, so we'll start producing chips in 2026.
Okay,
and we'll ramp up, through 2026 to 2028 up to certain the amount of chip. But we'll be a high volume facility by 28, 29. And of course, that's our plan.
Yeah.
Everything's got to go. There's a lot of I's, dots, and T's that have to happen, but we're feeling pretty good about it.
The charging equipment itself, is that something, is Bosch interested in expanding its presence in that area, producing charging?
Yeah, we've worked in the charging equipment area before. Right now, we're focusing more on the connectivity of the charging unit to the vehicle. Lots of times cables can be different. There can be smart cables that can tell you whether it's getting the right amount of energy, the wrong amount of energy. So, we're definitely involved in the charging infrastructure. Are we building charging stations, and is that one of our core business fields? If necessary, yes, but it's not really the main target for us. Those will be, either retail in nature, or we don't build. Who builds Shell their gas pumps for their stations?
So during the press conference yesterday, a big portion of it was talking about heat pump technology, and some new heat pump technology that Bosch has developed for operating at low temperatures. Is that something that Bosch is also looking at adapting for automotive applications?
Heat pumps. You could use a heat pump to set up some sort of charging network, right? But heat pumps require geological support, right? Because you have to pull the cool air from somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. So the heat pumps that we showed yesterday were more primarily related. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tim. More related for home comfort, than they were for vehicle comfort.
And the application in thermal management.
Now, I think you can have heat compressors or different things in thermal management that help you move fluids, and so maybe the concept is similar. And we could call them heat pumps, water pumps, coolant pumps, and those pumps move coolant around, of course, the battery to cool it during charging. And since you don't have an engine that you have to cool,
right?
You
don't have that source of waste heat on the internal combustion engine on an EV.
Correct.
So a heat pump could be helpful in heating the cabin.
Correct. Yeah, and in electrical heat and heat, we do use recirculating pumps and heat compressors along those lines. The concepts are a little bit different. I wouldn't draw a strong technical similarity between the home comfort heat pump and an automotive pump and valves.
You do also produce a lot of other components for EVs, motors. You've got the plant in Charleston, South Carolina, producing motors now.
Yep.
Now, how's that business, and how's the technology? How do you see the technology progressing there?
Yeah, we've been in rotating electrical products I've been with Bosch for 30 years, and I started in the rotating electrical group, right? So we've always been great at rotating electrical. We've always been really understanding of good dynamics for anything. So for us, e-machines are a great product portfolio for us. They encounter all the things we love to do. We love to wind machines, we love armatures, we love the type of material that has to go into it, and we're very, very good at tight tolerance type machines, and we're very efficient in all of the machines that we produce in Charleston. And even in Anderson, if you talk about EVs, I always go the full gamut, right? And Anderson will be making a fuel cell The fuel cell will go into a truck that's going to use the fuel cell to charge batteries to drive a Class 7-8 semi. So
I think going to be my next question. I had a chance to ride in the Nikola.
Yeah, what'd you think about it?
It's amazing, how quiet and smooth it is, and the acceleration it has. Yeah, and it's a very impressive truck.
Yeah, we're real happy with our partnership with them, and I mean, hydrogen will be, there's going to be a little bit of an adoption time right now with the hydrogen hubs being approved by OECD at the end of last year. So there's a lot of, I won't say a lot of money, but there's money available for people to build a hydrogen infrastructure. And I just think it's going to take some time. Yeah, and I think companies like Nikola, I mean, you're not going to build infrastructure for 200, 300, 400 trucks, right? You've got to build infrastructure for thousands of vehicles. So that will happen. And I think the same is happening with electrification. I'll go back to your question. Sorry, I didn't mean to take you off tangent a little bit. Charleston, we have E-Machines. Anderson, we have FCPM, but also inverters as well, which is part of our electrical vehicle architecture. Also could be made either in Europe, or we could do those in Juarez or Anderson or other areas.
And what I said, and then continuing on the hydrogen theme, we're starting to see some small number of hydrogen semi tractors out on the road now. There's a few dozen of the Nikola trucks. There's a few dozen from another company running around California now.
Yep.
But during the presentation yesterday, they also mentioned you start production on hydrogen fuel injectors for internal combustion.
Yeah, so
the market's there.
So there's a couple of ways to inject hydrogen, right? So are you familiar with like propane and natural gas injection? So what Mike was referencing yesterday was non-liquid injection. So the technology is very similar to delivery of a diesel to a liquid fuel like gasoline or diesel. And hydrogen has the potential to use very similar know-how, that components, of course, similar know-how, and being able to control and regulate the combustion, and also to be able to control and regulate the engine. And we believe that's a very good opportunity for us. Injected H2 isn't our primary path right now. So the engine Mike was referencing yesterday was not liquid, but was air. And we see that in some of our heavy-duty customers, not only here in North America, but also in India, and in China. So globally, we've got H2 in.
Again, mainly for the heavy-duty market, as with the fuel cells.
Yeah. Okay. And it's all going to depend on how readily available hydrogen is. Correct. I mean, Toyota has a great infrastructure for hydrogen with their Mirai and things, and it's a great vehicle if you've never driven it. But still, you would know the difference. But the fuel that still isn't easy.
Yeah, and both in terms of availability and hooking up a hydrogen nozzle to a car.
But if I look at the environment that we're living in right now, right, we have internal combustion engines, we have electrification, we have hydrogen. We'll also have different types of hybrids that I think you'll start seeing the market move towards. And I think we want to play in all of those areas. Well, we're not ready to give up on our technology in ICE, but we're also not ready to say we're putting all the eggs in the electrification basket. We want to partner there, and then we're also looking in the future. So I think we've got a good.
Well, with your capacities in both electric motors, the inverters, some of the other components, are you also targeting the hybrid market with some of that technology?
Yeah, I think if you look into 48 volt type hybrids, especially in Brazil, with the flex fuel situation there, where they're able to use ethanol and be more of a liquid fuel country. 48 volt and mild to strong hybrids, I think, are going to find a way in to this, because as you extend pure BEV, and the government allows hybrids to be ZEV compliant, and the problem with H2 as well, it's not ZEV compliant yet. They don't give you zero emissions, so that's going to, once that happens, maybe we'll start seeing more of that. But fundamentally, I think that having that full gamut of products while you bridge the technologies from pure combustion to pure electrification is going to be a while, right? I mean, all the investments are starting to slow down a little bit. I think you're seeing that in the infrastructure to build batteries as it did the U.S.
Right. So, any final thoughts on mobility and kind of where you see Bosch going, anything we haven't talked about that?
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking a little bit about this because there's a lot of ways I could answer that question. But the one thing I do like is the focus on energy I'm seeing this year at the start of 24, and how people are looking at energy as the savings, not as a certain technology to generate energy savings. So to me, that's the way we should look at it, because when people just say, oh, do everything electric, you're ignoring how that energy is developed, and you're ignoring where the energy is coming from.
You got to look at the entire ecosystem.
Exactly. So the fact that we're looking more at energy and the ecosystem, I applaud that, because then we're really making the responsible decisions for mobility, not based upon a certain technology that's cool, but one that fits into the region that we're working, and one that has the infrastructure and the technology to support it. Then it makes the world better by nature.
Yeah.
So that's the way I'd answer. I mean, mobility tied to energy now is nice. There's always great things to talk about. I mean, 5 years ago it was autonomy. 2 years ago it was, electrification was going to take over. That who knows what's next. But I like keeping it real balanced.
Yeah. Well, now, big thing this week seems to be putting large language model support into cars. And so that's going to consume more energy. So
yeah, and that's it. And if you don't have the energy, car won't go.
That's right. All right, Paul. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much too. Thanks, Steve.
Meeting. This idea, I hope is